All right, guys, so I thought I'd show you the stuff that I've either bought or prepared for my puree stage. So on the right here, you'll see I have a couple of homemade things. This is buffalo chicken dip. I've portioned some of it, five little containers, 1.5 ounces each, into these little guys, and then I put the rest of it into this wide mouth jar to freeze. And then this is homemade black beans that I've done the same thing. So 5 individual ones, a wide mouth jar to freeze, and there actually is some more. These I've blended with my immersion blender so they're nice and smooth. And then there's probably about still this same amount left over that I'm not going to puree, that I'll just also freeze for a later date. If you stay tuned at the end, I have included videos of me making those. So if you want recipes and you want to know how to make them, just keep watching. I also bought myself some of these lox, smoked salmon. I really like smoked salmon, and I'm allowed to have anything that can be mashed with a fork. Smoked salmon tends to be nice and soft, and so I thought that would be a nice thing to have. I'm not sure what I'll eat it with yet. I actually think it might be good with a little just plain Greek yogurt, something tangy, because I really love it with goat cheese. In fact, I might go pick up some goat cheese. I didn't think to get that at the store today, but that may be something I do. Also got myself some low-fat cottage cheese. I like cottage cheese. I know it's not everyone's cup of tea. I am allowed to have some deli meat, so I got this mesquite smoked turkey. And I got some of these little minis of guacamole that I was thinking would be good with eggs. So I'm not allowed to have scrambled eggs on my puree stage, but I can have poached eggs, which is fine with me because I prefer poached eggs to scrambled eggs, although they are a little bit more work. But I thought those two might go nicely together. And then back here, and don't worry, this is just, it's been in the freezer, so that's why it looks like this, is the rest of the split pea soup that I made pre-op. I ended up blending about half of it, or maybe a little bit less than half of it, that I have in some of these wide mouth jars in the freezer. So I've been working on that, but I really prefer it in its unblended state. It's still really soft. Everything's really, really soft and mushy in there. I cooked it like pretty much all day. So I'm thinking I'll probably enjoy that on the puree stage as well. This is not everything I plan to eat. The other thing that's not here is I did get all the ingredients to make a ricotta bake. So I'll try to remember to film that and stick it in here. But if not, just know that that's on my list. I just didn't meal prep that because I don't know how well it would do meal prepped. I think it's going to be more of like a make it and eat it type thing. And then of course I can also have some other things like creamy peanut butter, and then all of the things that were allowed on the full liquids I'll also be enjoying. So that will be things like soups, cream of wheat. I'm trying to think. Those are really the only things that I've eaten, and broth, of course, on the full liquid diet, other than my protein shakes, which I will also continue to drink. So that's it. Stay tuned and you'll see how I made these beans and the buffalo chicken dip. So what we have here is everything to make some black beans. This is, it's not really a recipe, I kind of made it up, but I make black beans all the time as a side dish to go with things, and they're really, really good. I know you can buy like canned refried beans, but homemade is so much better, and they're honestly so easy. So I thought I'd show you how I make my black beans. They've always been a hit, and they're really, really easy if you have an Instant Pot. So here we've got my Instant Pot. You can't see the display panel, but I have it on the saute setting on hot right now because we're gonna saute some of these ingredients up. And this is everything we're using, at least for now. No, you know what? I'm sorry. I forgot one thing. Give me a second. Okay, now we have everything. The ingredient I forgot is my Better Than Bouillon. It's like a paste, so it's not the cubes, but it's this paste that you can use to make stock. I always have one of these in beef and one of these in chicken in my fridge, and they're what I use if I'm cooking with any sort of stock. It's always with this. I don't buy stock at the grocery store, mostly because I never remember and I can't tell the difference. And the other thing I love about this is you can make your stock as strong or like less strong, weak flavored as you want, as concentrated as you want. So what we have is the Better Than Bouillon paste. This is just about 3 slices of salt pork. I always keep a hunk of this in my freezer. It's super cheap to buy at the grocery store. And it's just really great for soups or beans, anything you want to add like a nice porky backbone to. I used to always use pancetta for a lot of things, which also works great, but pancetta is very expensive. For some things I still do use pancetta, but for something like beans, there's no reason to spend, you know, $11 on a thing of pancetta. You can get a whole hunk of salt pork for like $3 or $4. And then I just cut off slices while it's still frozen. It's very fatty, so it doesn't freeze up hard. And then I just dice it up. We've got here a whole chopped onion. This was about a medium-sized onion, so you'll see it's not a ton. We have 12 ounces by weight of dried black beans. These are not soaked. They're just dry. When you're doing it in the Instant Pot, you don't need to pre-soak them. You can if you want, but I find it's not really necessary. The biggest change I find if you soak them is that the beans kind of stay more whole when you cook them. But especially for this, where we're going to be pureeing them, you want them to break apart. And honestly, I like a more like paste type texture like you get with refried beans, which just putting them in there dry works fine. Here is about 4 cloves of garlic that I've minced. And then this is half a jalapeno that, again, I've minced. So what we're going to do is just throw a little bit of avocado oil in our Instant Pot. And then we will throw in the onion. I don't know if you can hear that. It's sizzling a little bit. I don't think I had my saute heat all the way up. So I just turned up the heat because we want to get a good, we want to cook these down a little bit before we turn the pressure on. So give me a second and I'll come back at you and we'll do the rest. All right, guys, I'm back. So as you can see, the onions are cooking, getting nice and soft. They're not fully cooked through yet or translucent. They're just kind of starting to get soft. I'm gonna go ahead and throw in our salt pork. We don't need to get this all fully cooked before we turn the pressure on. It's just kind of to help build those flavors and to also make sure that our ingredients aren't cold before we turn the pressure on, so that's just going to take longer for it to get up to pressure. So I like to just kind of saute everything together before we put the lid on and set it to pressure cook. And I'm also going to go ahead at this point, the Instant Pot doesn't get super hot, so I'm going to go ahead and throw in the garlic. If I were doing this on the stove, I'd put the garlic in a little bit later to keep it from getting burned, but that's really not a concern here. So we'll do that, and same with the jalapeno. If you don't like spice, you can leave the jalapeno out. I've certainly done this plenty of times without any jalapeno in there, and it's perfectly delicious. Or you could serve either fresh or pickled jalapenos with the final dish. I just happen to have that half a jalapeno in my fridge and figured I'd use it up. So this is all kind of getting to know each other. Here's what it looks like. And I'm just going to let that sit for a minute and let all those delicious flavors get to know each other. I am not seasoning this at this stage, and that's for two reasons. One is that the salt pork, as the name implies, is very, very salty. So I highly recommend do not add any salt to this until the end, because the pork will really release a lot of that salt. You won't need to put a lot of salt in these. And if you do at the beginning, you can't unsalt them. So there's that. And then I just, I just like to be able to taste as I go. And if you put it at the beginning, you're not going to be able to taste it. So until the end. And the other thing is there will be a lot of liquid that I usually let cook off at the end. And so that, again, will change the concentration of salt and other seasonings you put in here. Based on how much of that you cook off at the end. So just wait until a little bit, 5 minutes before they're done, and get them to the consistency you want, season it, let it sit for a few minutes, and then serve them, and you'll be fine. I am making a pretty big batch of these because I'm gonna freeze them. So anyway, this is all coming together. I think I'm gonna go ahead and throw the beans in. Like I said, you really don't need to get this all cooked down or fully cooked by any means, because they are gonna pressure cook. So I'm just gonna go ahead and dump my beans in there, and I'll go ahead and add some water. This is 2 cups of water. I think I'll probably end up needing about 4. You just want to make sure the beans are covered. Actually, they're pretty covered there. Let's do 1 more cup and see where that puts us. Anytime you're cooking anything in the Instant Pot, you need to make sure you have enough liquid. Otherwise, the results are not going to be good. So that's 3 cups of water, and that's about right. So we've got a nice solid layer of water covering all of our ingredients in here. I'm gonna again keep that on saute just for a minute to get everything nice and hot. And we'll also add our better than bouillon now. And I'm not gonna measure this out. You can see it's really thick. I just stick a spoon in there and then kind of run it under there. You could do this with plain water, but I like really flavorful beans. I really like beans and like soups, anything that has a nice strong back flavor. And see, with the water kind of warm, it just comes right off. You could also do chicken stock if you don't eat beef. You could do vegetable stock if you don't eat meat, but of course you'd also need to leave the pork out. And I'm gonna be honest, I don't know how good these would be without the pork. I still think they'd be pretty good, but I'm a total sucker for that just really strong, porky, delicious flavor that you get from it. So I'm gonna stir that together just a little bit until the that better than bouillon paste sort of evenly distributes. I think that's pretty much there. And then we're just gonna turn off the saute function, put our lid on, make sure it's set to sealing, and then I'm gonna put this on pressure cook just using manual for an hour. If you soaked your beans, you can probably get away with like 45 minutes, but a little more time isn't gonna hurt them, and I find an hour is pretty much always sufficient to get these good and cooked and soft. And with the Instant Pot, I do find it's worth, at least with something like beans, putting a little bit more time on there. You're not gonna overcook them. And if you undercook them, getting them back up to pressure takes like another couple of minutes. So I just think it's worth it to add that little bit of extra time on the front end. Of course, that's gonna be different if you're doing something like meat, but for beans, it's fine. Anyway, so we'll do that. I'll probably let those natural release just because I'm not in any rush, but you can also do a quick release. I've done that before and it's fine. And we'll come back at you. All right, guys, so our beans are still cooking. They've got about 45 minutes left. I've washed up this board, and I'm gonna make buffalo chicken dip. This is not a recipe I've ever made before, but I've seen Erica on Time to Shrink make it a bunch of times, and I love buffalo chicken, so I thought I'd try it out. So what we have here is half a stick of cream cheese. This is full fat cream cheese because for reasons that I don't know why, I was possessed to buy a whole thing at Costco of Philadelphia cream cheese, just the regular kind. So that's what I'm using, but you could totally use, third less fat or fat free. But that's what I've got. Then we've got a can, what is this? A 10-ounce can of chicken breast that I've drained. Erica on Time to Shrink, when she's made this, has always used sour cream, but I'm going to use, this is Greek yogurt. I've frequently substitute Greek yogurt for sour cream in recipes, and it works just fine. And it gives you that extra protein. It's a little lower fat. Then we've got about half a tablespoon of ranch seasoning. I'm just using the Hidden Valley kind because it's what I had on hand. And about a quarter cup of shredded cheese. I'm using a Mexican blend, and then we'll also throw in a quarter cup of Frank's Red Hot. So I have no idea if this is going to be good, but we'll see. I should mention I did leave the cream cheese out to soften for about an hour, but I still felt like it was a little cold, so I stuck it in the microwave for about 20 seconds. So now we're just gonna mix all this together. I think I'm gonna start with the wet ingredients to get those mixed, and then I'll add in the cheese and the seasoning. But I kind of want to get these incorporated before I go adding those, because I don't want them to get all clumped up. And I'm gonna mash up the chicken really good. Even though it's called the puree stage, my the little book that my dietitian gave me said that anything you can mash with a fork is probably fine. So I'm not gonna put this through the food processor to get it totally pureed. I figure I can chew it up some more when I eat it, and I just feel like that's gonna be a little more satisfying for me. All right, I think that's good and mashed. And now I'm just gonna use the same measuring cup again. I'm really excited. I've never tried this before, so I really hope it's good. I will say I've never been a huge fan of canned chicken when I've had it in things before, but I think in like something like this that's a dip consistency, I think it'll be okay. And even if not, I'll get an idea of whether I like the flavors together. And I could always use, like, obviously once I'm off the, once I'm allowed to eat full solid foods again, I could always try using like rotisserie chicken. So I'm just gonna get that a little bit incorporated, and then we'll go ahead with the ranch seasoning and the cheese. And I'm gonna put this into those little 2-ounce cups that I've showed you on some previous videos, like the things that if you go to a restaurant and get like a side of dressing to go that they're in, that have the little lids, just so that they're pre-portioned out. I'll do that with the beans too, and I'll probably only do that with part of these, and then I'll freeze the rest, because I don't want this stuff to go bad, plus that way it doesn't take up all this room in my fridge. So that's pretty good and mixed. I'm gonna give it a quick taste. And yeah, I do like that. I do think next time, or at least once I'm able to, I will probably use like rotisserie chicken or something. I'm just not loving the canned chicken. It always has a little bit of a flavor on the back end that reminds me of like tuna fish, which I don't mind when it's actual tuna fish, but don't love it as chicken. And I also think the rotisserie chicken just would be really soft and add a nice flavor. But the flavor overall is really good. I think the Greek yogurt does really well in here. You could use probably a less spicy hot sauce. This is not super hot, but Frank's does also make like a buffalo version that is slightly less spicy you could use, or just whatever you like. But I do think this tastes pretty good, so I'm excited to have it. All right, that's it. Thanks, guys. Bye. All right, so our beans are done cooking. I actually did end up doing a quick release because I happened to be standing over here right when they went off. And don't mind my dog, he's spazzing out outside. So you can see, hopefully they're still in pretty good shape, and they're a little soupy. There's actually, I probably should have done 4 cups of water at the beginning, but it was fine. The top layer was just maybe a little bit dry. So I'm just gonna let these cook on they're on the keep warm setting, but with the lid off, so that a little bit of this extra fluid will cook off for probably 10 minutes. And then I'm just gonna portion some of them back into this cup and blend them with my immersion blender so that they're good and smooth for my puree diet. That's probably not necessary, but just with the bean skins, I want to be extra sure. Plus there's the pork and the onions in there. And then the rest I'll just mash up and freeze to have later. So yeah, that's about it. I did taste one of these. I definitely don't think this needs any more salt. I might add a little bit of pepper, but honestly, they're pretty perfect as they are. Really delicious. Hey guys, so I wanted to come back and show you. I realized I didn't really explain. Now that some of the liquid has cooked down a little bit, I don't serve them like this. You can if you like your beans a little more soupy. I like them more pasty. So what I do is I just take the spoon and I just sort of smash them against the side of the bowl. like this. And you just keep doing that until they're as much of a paste as you want. Some of these I'm going to take out before it's fully like thick and pasty to blend with the immersion blender, like I said. But then I'll just mash the rest so that we get more of that, like what you expect from refried beans. I will say they're always going to be thinner when they're hot. So when they cool down, they'll thicken up a little bit more. So you want to get them until they're just a little thinner than how you'd want them to be on your plate. Because once you serve them up, they will thicken up a little bit, but they're really, really tasty.